So Hasan is trending again, not because of a big political take, not because of some massive expose, but because once again he sounds completely exhausted, irritated, and ready to tap out. And this time, he actually said the quiet part out loud. On stream, Hasan openly floated the idea that by 2026 he might just be done with Twitch entirely. No more live streaming, no more daily grind, either full YouTube videos or disappearing offline altogether. Now, on its own, that wouldn't be that shocking. Plenty of creators talk about burnout. Plenty of streamers fantasize about quitting. But the reason this moment blew up isn't just what he said, it's everything around it. The contradictions, the frustration, the community behavior, and the growing sense that the thing breaking Hasan isn't haters or centrists or slop tubers, it's the ecosystem he built. Let's start at the beginning. This all kicked off with something incredibly minor. Hasan complained about New Year's Eve landing midweek and said it felt like he was clocking into work. That alone wouldn't be worth talking about, except for the context. When you're someone whose job is watching clips, reacting, and talking to chat, complaining about working on New Year's is always going to hit a nerve, especially when your entire brand revolves around class consciousness and labor politics. People immediately clowned him for it, not because he isn't allowed to be tired, but because it felt tone deaf. That tone deafness is important because it set the mood for everything that followed. From there, the stream slowly turned into what Hasan streams often turn into lately: frustration bleeding into resentment, resentment bleeding into blame, and blame getting pointed everywhere except inward. At one point, Hasan started addressing his community harassing another streamer. And on the surface, it sounded like he was doing the right thing. He told people to stop. He said it was weird. He said it was parasocial. But then the framing shifted. Instead of don't harass people, the message became you're wasting your energy on the wrong people. Instead of condemning the behavior itself, he redirected the anger. And that's where people really started raising eyebrows. Because telling a community to stop harassing someone shouldn't come with a follow-up suggestion of who deserves it more. That's not de-escalation, that's target correction. And whether intentional or not, it reinforces the biggest criticism Hasan has faced for years, that his community behaves the way it does because it mirrors his attitude. He often claims he has no control over his chat, that there's nothing he can do, that they're independent actors. But moments like this suggest otherwise. When he wants them to stop, they stop. When he wants them focused elsewhere, they redirect. That's not lack of control, that's selective control. As the stream went on, Hasan's mood visibly declined. You could hear it in his voice. You could see it in how short his patience became. And eventually he said it. He said he hates Twitch streaming. He said it feels pointless. He said everything sucks. And then he dropped the line that made headlines. Maybe in 2026, he just quits. That moment is fascinating because it directly contradicts something he had said earlier. Earlier in the stream, Hasan claimed he'd had a pretty good year, that things were going well, that his approach was working. So which is it? Are you thriving or are you miserable? Are you winning or are you burned out? You can't be both at the same time, at least not without serious cognitive dissonance. And that dissonance shows up everywhere in how Hasan talks about himself versus how he reacts emotionally. One minute, he frames himself as a truth teller surrounded by dishonest opportunists. The next minute, he sounds completely defeated by the internet. One minute, he claims he's too principled to care about numbers. The next, he openly acknowledges that other creators massively outperform him and that his own videos barely register. There's a deep insecurity there that never really gets addressed. Instead, it gets externalized. A big chunk of the stream focused on Hasan blaming apolitical or centrist creators for his reputation. According to him, these people frame him negatively before audiences ever see his content directly, poisoning perception. But here's the problem with that argument. Hasan is one of the largest political creators on the platform. His clips circulate constantly. His takes go viral on their own. People don't need intermediaries to encounter his content. When people dislike him, it's usually because of things he said, unedited, on his own stream. At some point, you can't keep blaming framing when the source material is the issue. Another recurring theme was his obsession with another streamer, despite repeatedly insisting he doesn't care. He denies being focused on them, denies being obsessed, denies thinking about them, and then proceeds to mention them repeatedly. That contradiction has become almost comical. If you genuinely don't care about someone, you don't keep bringing them up to explain how little you care. It comes across less like indifference and more like fixation, and chat knows it, which is why they keep baiting him, which is why he keeps reacting. It's a feedback loop he refuses to break. The conversation eventually drifted into Hasan claiming Twitch itself is afraid to associate with him, that they won't promote him, that they've distanced themselves. But again, context matters. Platforms don't avoid creators randomly. They avoid controversy that scares advertisers. And Hasan's brand of rhetoric, especially when it veers into extreme or inflammatory territory, is always going to make corporations nervous. That's not persecution. That's risk management. You can't simultaneously position yourself as radically anti-establishment and then be shocked when the establishment doesn't want you as a mascot. As the stream went on, Hasan oscillated between bravado and self-pity. He talked about beliefs, he talked about principles, he talked about being on the right side of history, and then moments later he talked about quitting. That whiplash is what people are reacting to most, not the politics, not the drama, but the instability. Viewers can tell when a creator is spiraling, and Hasan, whether he wants to admit it or not, sounds exhausted by the very thing he built. His community has become too aggressive for casual engagement, his critics have become too loud to ignore, and his own rhetoric has boxed him into a corner where backing down looks like betrayal. So what's left? Burnout. That's what this looks like. Not a principled exit, not a master plan, but burnout disguised as moral frustration. And here's the irony. Hasan constantly criticizes parasocial behavior, yet his entire ecosystem thrives on emotional investment. He condemns harassment, yet benefits from a fan base that aggressively defends him. He says he hates the platform, yet relies on it for relevance. That tension is unsustainable long term. So when he says maybe 2026, it doesn't sound like a threat. It sounds like a countdown. Not because Twitch will force him out. Not because haters will win, but because living in constant outrage eventually consumes you. Whether Hasan actually quits or not almost doesn't matter. What matters is that, for the first time, he sounds like someone who doesn't enjoy what he's doing anymore. And once that spark is gone, no amount of ideology can replace it. If he does leave Twitch, it won't be the end of the internet. If he stays, nothing fundamentally changes unless he does. And until then, we're probably going to keep seeing the same cycle: anger, blame, denial, and exhaustion. Not a downfall, just a slow grind against a machine he helped create. And that's the real story here.